I have lived alone long enough to notice what quietly changes inside. Not in habits, but in how women appear to me now. There was a time I looked toward them for warmth. Now I notice distance before desire. Silence teaches a different kind of attention. I see gestures before beauty, pauses before smiles. Loneliness sharpens observation, not longing. This is not bitterness and not peace either. It is a narrowing of noise. A man alone long enough stops reaching outward automatically. He begins to notice what enters him instead. Women are no longer answers to something missing. They are reflections that ask something back. And that question does not rush. It waits. The quiet shift from social curiosity to observational distance. After long solitude, attention no longer moves outward the same way. It becomes slower, less eager, more selective about what it receives. I began noticing women not as invitations, but as presences passing through space, not judging, not evaluating, simply registering what appears and what does not. There is a difference between looking to connect and learning how to observe. Living alone trains the nervous system to pause before reaching. You start sensing tone before intention, and emotional weight before attraction. This is not withdrawal, but a recalibration of where energy goes. When you are alone long enough, curiosity turns inward first, and that quiet shift changes what you notice next. How solitude rewrites expectations rather than erasing desire. After observation settles in, desire does not disappear. It simply stops asking to be fed immediately. Living alone long enough changes what desire expects in return. I noticed attraction arriving without urgency, then waiting quietly. It no longer pushes the body forward. It checks the internal weather first. Solitude teaches desire to listen before it speaks. You begin sensing whether contact will regulate or disturb you. This is where expectation softens. Not lowered, but stripped of fantasy and projection. What remains is quieter and harder to impress, and that changes how connection is even imagined. Women as emotional mirrors instead of social goals. With fewer expectations, perception begins to reorganize itself. Women no longer appear as destinations, but as emotional signals moving nearby. I started noticing how my body responded before my thoughts did. A tightening, a calm, a subtle withdrawal without words. Living alone refines this sensitivity without making it dramatic. You sense whether presence steadies you or quietly unsettles you. Attraction becomes less about pursuit, more about internal alignment. You are not asking what she wants from you. You are noticing what you become around her. This shift feels passive from the outside. Inside, it is precise. And it prepares the ground for a different kind of respect. The softening of judgment. After long-term self-containment, something else changes quietly after enough time alone. Judgment loses its sharpness without anyone noticing. I stopped labeling women as easy or difficult, warm or distant. Those categories belong to a social urgency I no longer lived inside. Solitude removes the need to sort people quickly. You have time to let impressions arrive fully, then settle. I noticed how often judgment was really self-protection in disguise. Living alone makes that mechanism visible, almost transparent. What replaces it is not tolerance, but patience, a willingness to let complexity stay unresolved. Women are no longer problems to interpret. They become separate inner worlds, moving at their own pace. And that softening prepares the ground for something quieter ahead. When attraction becomes tempered by psychological safety. After judgment softens, attraction changes its tone as well. It becomes less about intensity, more about internal steadiness. I noticed my interest rising only when my body felt unthreatened. Not excited, not tense, just quietly regulated. Living alone trains you to protect a fragile inner balance. Anything that disrupts it becomes noticeable immediately. Attraction starts passing through that filter without effort. You sense whether closeness would cost more than it gives. This is not fear and not avoidance. It is an awareness of nervous system limits. Desire no longer overrides self-preservation. It waits to see if safety can coexist with closeness. And that question reshapes what attraction even means. The difference between wanting connection and needing regulation. At some point, wanting connection stops feeling like hunger. It begins to resemble a question about internal balance. I noticed how often connection used to arrive after emotional fatigue, as if another person might stabilize something I could not. Living alone makes that pattern harder to ignore. You feel when the body is seeking regulation, not closeness. The impulse sounds similar, but the direction is different. One moves toward another person, the other is asking for relief. Solitude teaches you to pause at that threshold, to ask, quietly, what is actually being reached for? And that pause changes the shape of connection entirely. How long solitude reshapes respect into something wordless. After regulation is understood, respect changes its form. It no longer needs to announce itself or prove intention. I noticed respect appearing as restraint, not performance, as leaving space untouched, even when closeness is possible. Living alone teaches you how fragile inner order can be. You stop wanting to enter another life loudly. Respect becomes the ability to remain quiet without disappearing, to sense another person without needing access. Women are no longer approached as mysteries to solve. They are acknowledged as complete systems, already in motion. And that recognition does not ask for a response. It simply stands there, steady, and lets the moment pass. Living alone long enough does not harden a man toward women. It quiets the parts that once rushed toward meaning. What remains is not detachment, but a slower form of presence, one that listens before it leans forward. Women are no longer symbols of lack or fulfillment. They exist as themselves, and that is enough to register. This view is not better and not worse. It is simply what forms when noise falls away, when nothing inside is asking to be completed, only noticed and allowed to pass.